No pressure.
Never any pressure. Love it.
It gives me an option to leave the meeting, Kimberly. You shouldn't have given me that
I
option.
know that is true. Oh, that's funny. Well, for those of you who don't know, this is Wendy Shaw, the Russell Shaw team, and she's both the beauty and the brains of that. Russell's just like the mouthpiece, and we all know that. It's okay. He knows I say that about him. No,
Come
it's good.
on.
No, he's brilliant in his own right for sure. But one of the things that has been long Wendy's responsibility in their team is negotiating contracts and working with sellers. And I feel like this marketplace has so much craziness involved that some of us think that every skill we've ever had, we have to like revamp it and try to figure out what it looks like. And I wanted Wendy to come and share today because number one, I do think she's brilliant. And I think there's things to learn. Her perspective is excellent. She's negotiated thousands of contracts. So in every market climate that we've ever seen. So I wanted to have her come because I think that the skill of negotiation is something that even in a hopping, frankly, in a super hopping market, we don't really need our negotiation skills, I feel like, very often, right? We just feel like we can roll the dice and we're going to win. It's a big craps table that makes everybody happy. But I think when we are in tougher markets, we need to know what we need to know. And I think because we've come out of a really fast and easy market, some of those negotiation skills are very likely requiring a little bit of polish, right? We need to think about them again. And so I've asked Wendy to come and share. I'm not going to talk anymore because I mean, the value that she's going to deliver, we talked on, I don't know, Saturday a little bit about it. And I just got super excited. Gave myself chills about it for you on your behalf. So Wendy, thank you, my friend, for being here. It's all you, girl.
Okay, well, I'm happy to talk to you guys. I don't know, everybody's skill set's going to be different. So there's probably going to be things I say that you're like, yeah, duh. But I'm just going to kind of say, here's how I think, and you can take what you want or can use. I hope you can use something here. So kind of when Kimberly and I were talking about this, I said, the first thing I would say is know your market. And by that, I mean, know what the condition of the overall market is, and then what I'd call a sub-market. So we've got what Phoenix overall, greater Phoenix, and all the, Gilbert, Tempe, Mesa, all that stuff. But like, what's the greater Phoenix market looking like right now? You need to know that. And then what sub-market are you operating in? Because obviously different areas and subdivisions have different supply demand ratios. And so really what you need to know is, am I operating in a seller's market or am I operating in a buyer's market? Right now, what's making, I think, this market the most difficult is that it's such a low volume market. And so while it may in most sectors, not all, but in most sectors, it's gently favoring sellers, I still feel it would be misleading to sellers and buyers to say, hey, this is a seller's market, because it doesn't feel like a seller's market and it's not really behaving like a seller's market. So what I mean by that is you may just get, if you're on the seller side, you may just get one or two offers at most on your property, where in the past we might have expected, God, I don't know. I had one that had like 65 offers, which that's so fun. Because that way you get to have like 65 offers. I have 64 agents who hate my guts, and because only one's going to win. So that's always a great time. But anyhow, we're not in that kind of market. We're in a very low volume market. And so because we're in a low volume market, my feeling is that, and if you're representing the buyer side, there's not a lot of options for buyers. There's not a ton of inventory coming on. So waiting is not necessarily a good strategy. We're seeing gentle price increases mainly because of low supply. So even though we don't have a high volume market, we're seeing gentle price increases. So waiting is usually not a great strategy for buyers. So there's probably negotiations we could talk about that you're doing with your clients, but at the moment I'm just focusing on negotiating contracts, and then we can talk about anything you guys are actually interested in instead of maybe what I'm talking about. But anyhow, so the first thing is know your market, in my opinion. And then how are we going to define good negotiation? What is good negotiation? Because there are people who believe good negotiation is beating the crap out of the other person and getting everything and dominating and winning. there are other people who say, you know, we need to do a win-win transaction, which I don't love that kind of cliche language. So I'll tell you how I define it in my, you know, general concept. Whoever I'm representing, that I did the very best for that side, I got the best terms possible for my side, while making the other side feel that I was not an opponent, not confrontational, and that they had a good experience and would want to work with me again. But make no mistake, I'm just going to be honest with you. If I'm representing a seller, I'm trying to get every penny out of that buyer's pocketbook I can for the seller. And that's my job, is to take the money from the buyer and give it to the seller. That is my job. If you're the buyer agent, your job is to disclose as little as possible, get as much information as possible from the listing agent, and negotiate the least amount of money, getting the most terms, the best situation for your buyer. So inevitably in negotiation, we are not on the same side. But that doesn't mean it has to feel like we are enemies, because we're not, because we both have the same goal of let's put this deal together. So I would say the other thing I would tell you is make sure you know who you work for, and then your behavior and your words should match that. Because I will be honest with you, I have seen many agents that I've done transactions with that I've literally hung up the phone and said to my staff, man, if I were their client, I would be mad just on what they told me, how they behaved. So a good negotiation, in my opinion, is a properly negotiated deal that goes together with the best terms possible that you could get for your client. Some deals you can't get everything. You can't. If there's multiple offers and you're representing a buyer, your buyer's going to need to give up things. But then how are we going to define in a multiple offer situation? How are we going to define good negotiation? If I'm a buyer's agent, winning, getting that house. When we were in a market that had multiple offers, I would say, you know, you needed to redefine as a buyer's agent for your client. Look, winning is not getting the cheapest price. Winning is getting the house at all. And so I would urge you to define for yourself what you think good negotiation is. I don't think good negotiation is everybody walking away bloody and wounded and hating each other, because that, you know, we're just at the beginning of the transaction. We've got a lot more hurdles to cross. So since the goal is to close deals, not just put them together, it's probably best if we can end up where everybody feels okay. You know, maybe they didn't get everything they wanted, but they feel good about the experience. So anyway, that's my 2 cents. So I'm just going to like blather stuff, Kimberly, and you interrupt, or any of your people interrupt. I'm just going to go, here's my thoughts. You can probably, I'll tell you something. I have no formal training as a negotiator, and I think that's going to show up completely in my conversation. What I do have
Only 30
is,
years of experience, but no
well,
formal education.
well, I
But
mean,
you know, before you go on, when I want
yeah,
to jump in, because you said, I mean, I'm taking notes as fast as furious as I can. But one of the things that you said was, you know, we're not trying to make the other side bloody, and that we need to do the very best for our client. And we have to figure out how, since this is the starting point, how do we do this up front and still walk hand in hand to get across that line? And this isn't the only negotiation. We didn't really go into that, but we have more negotiations to come in the contract. So strategically speaking, like when you just said you get off the phone and you tell your staff, if I were their client, I'd be really mad.
yeah,
Those are some of my funnest conversations, because sometimes your silence is your best weapon, right? So if we're going to talk tactical, like how are you
correct.
getting all of this information? Because my job is not to police you on the other side to make sure that you're
Correct.
protecting your client. My job is to do the very best I can for my client, which does feel like it's adversarial, but ultimately we're wanting the same thing. So there is this fine language line and tonality and attitude. Things that I never say in a conversation like that are, I don't know about you, Wendy, but I've been in the business, blah, blah, blah years, right? Like that's the first one that makes me just want to jab my eye out. And then I don't like that person anymore.
Right. Right.
You
Right.
know, so now I don't want to work with you because I think you're a pompous ass. So
Right.
we have to be careful in the language that we're using while we're trying to get information. And sometimes I think it's better to ask a very open-ended question and then just sit there and be quiet and let them just chew in it. The problem for most of us is we aren't actually good with silence. We feel like we need to fill the silence, which is what we're trying to get them to do. So practice not speaking. Like, that's the question.
Well,
You know what I'm saying? But I mean, like, when you're doing this, all three of those things that we're juggling, like, what is the language you're using? What's the number one question when you call to talk to, if you're representing the seller, what are you calling when you're vetting that buyer? What are you saying?
okay. Okay, so I'm going to tell you what my goal is, and then I'll tell you where I start. So my belief is a good negotiation is a good interrogation. And that is actually, if you're doing your job, you should be interrogating the other agent. Now, the key is to not make it feel like an interrogation, right? So the first thing I'm going to do is what I think every agent should do. If you're a listing agent, you should be saying, thank you for showing the property. Thank you for writing. And that is honestly how I feel. And even if the offer is crap, I always thank the agent. Why? Because they've worked hard. This is not an easy business. And we're all trying to, when you have a decreased volume in the market, people are hungry and stressed. And so I want to begin with gratitude, because that's actually how I feel. Thank you. Thank you for showing it. Thank you for writing the offer. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to ask some basic, just nothing kind of questions. They do have some purpose, but they're not scripted. So I'm going to ask, if the offer is low, the first thing I'm going to ask is share with me how you all arrived at the price. That's not confrontational. That's all how you ask it, right? If I go like, what the hell's with the price? Where did you guys, that's attack, right? So I'll just say, share with me kind of what the buyer's thoughts were. That takes the agent out of the loop, so they're not guilty. What were your buyer's thoughts in picking this number? How did we arrive here? Just so that I can better present your offer. And that's exactly what I'm trying to do. Give me the information, your thought process. What I'm looking for there is was this the buyer's number, the agent's number, a combination? Is the agent on my side, so to speak, meaning I want more money? Is the agent on against the buyer, basically, going, I didn't want to write this. And I've had agents say that, like, I didn't want to write this number. I told them you'll be countering us. Okay, again, not great strategy on the part of the buyer agent. If you have written an offer where you can't defend the price, the first thing I would say is try to better handle your client, educate your client on the market and why you feel it's not a good strategy. But god dang, if you're going to write it and present it, freaking present it. Then you're going to make the argument of market conditions, low volume markets. The property, has some challenges, although my buyer very much likes the property overall. There are some things they'd like to update. I've never found it strategic to insult the listing agent or the property overly. So, coming back with, you guys way overpriced it, you're a dope, your seller is a pig, blah, blah, blah. Probably not a good strategy. We have a saying in our office, be easy to do business with. And we really try to live by that. What does that mean? Return calls, be polite. These are basic things, but they're apparently not that basic, because I've called agents and thanked them for the offer and they can't believe I'm calling them. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, okay, calling someone is now unique, or a differentiator. That's frightening. So be easy to do business with. So the first thing I'm starting with is interrogation. So I'm going to ask how we structured the offer, what the thought process was behind this offer. Now I'm just speaking from the seller side, but I'm happy to jump to the buyer side if people want me to. But this is just the window I look out every day. So where I'm trying to go, though, just to be honest, and God, Kimberly, now your agents, I'm going to have no luck with on negotiating contracts, but where I'm trying to,
that's the point.
So where I'm trying to go is I'm trying to find out how long your buyer's been looking. I'm trying to find out, have they written other offers that weren't accepted? Why am I going to that? Because I want to know, is this an unrealistic, if I've got a low offer, is this an unrealistic buyer? Is this a buyer that just writes low offers and really isn't very motivated and doesn't really care if they get a home, or are they motivated? Sometimes buyers have lost on properties that they want, and I hate to say it, but when their spirit's broken, I'm going to get more money out of them. So I can determine, is this a beaten down buyer that's just going to give me everything because they just want a freaking house, or they're so sort of mentally broken or whatever. I'm interrogating, but they're gentle questions that don't feel like interrogation. I'm also trying to build rapport with the agent, because the more we talk, the more we like each other, hopefully. And so that I better understand what the agent's going through. Sometimes I'm just saying to the agent, holy cow, if they tell me they've written 10 offers and none have happened, I'm like, oh my God, you must want to jump out of a building. You know, what's happening on your end? How do you think the buyer wants to buy? Is what's going on? And so sometimes I'm literally just trying to understand the team I have. So that's what I'm telling you. Understand the team you're working against. What is the skill set of your agent? What is the mindset of the buyer? If you can get that, that will help you in your negotiation. The question I'm trying to get to, will your buyer pay more? The problem is, if I start like this, thank you so much for showing the property. Will your buyer pay more? That doesn't usually go that well. It's efficient, but it's not effective. So I'm trying to build enough rapport so that when I ask that question, you answer it. And I will tell you 90% of the time, first time I ask it, I'll get an answer to that. If they say, yes, my buyer will pay more, I say, do you think they'll do, what do you think they'll do? Like 5, 10, how much more will they pay? And most of the time I can get an answer to that question. The truth of the matter is, we're pretty programmed in life to answer questions asked of us, particularly the honest people. We're not used to lying or sort of obfuscating answers. You know, someone says, can I borrow your, I don't know, your phone? Yes. You know, you're used to answering questions. You know, did you fill out the form? Yes. So most of the time people will answer the first time. Why am I doing that? Well, because it's good data for my seller. If I can call my seller up and go, hey, you know, I asked the agent if they pay more, the agent believes they'll pay another 10,000. Do you want to counter? Well, of course, my seller's going to want to counter, you know, yeah, there's money on the table, right? So most of the time, what I'm trying to get to is, am I leaving money on the table? Now, some agents, there is a portion of the agents who will not answer that question, but I will tell you it's few and far between. And so if you're on the other side, what are you going to ask a listing agent? Well, if I'm a buyer agent, I'm thanking the listing agent. They have a great seller, great property. So delighted to write on this. I know your reputation. You're a great agent. Glad to work with you. You know, do you have any other offers? Of course, I want to know that. Have you had previous offers? Now, they have no obligation to answer these questions, but, you know, did you have any previous offers? Really? What were they? Why didn't they go together? Do you think the seller's flexible? Are they willing to come down? Are there terms that are important to them? Again, the guy who's asking this is just negotiation 101. The guy who's asking the questions is in control. So if you ever find yourself feeling out of control on a conversation, like someone's dominating you, or, you know, I don't know, going down pathways you hate, you better think of a question. Because if you're going to get control back, you need to be starting to ask the questions. If you have to interrupt them, interrupt them. Just say, oh gosh, you know, George, or whoever that's agent. Hey, George, you know, forgive me for interrupting, but I just thought of something. Have you had any other offers? I mean, just go where you want to go. The guy asking the questions is in control. And so really, that's what I'm trying to get to. When I'm doing a negotiation, I'm trying to find out, have you lost a lot? Do you have a beaten down buyer? Do you believe in the offer agent? Or is this just a buyer, crackpot buyer? Is there more money on the table? Is there, you know, if I've got to go one direction, let's pretend they were asking for closing costs as well as a discounted price. Look, if I need to come back, am I better attacking closing costs or attacking price? You know, I'm trying to strategize to put it together in a way that's advantageous for my client, but still keeps you getting something you want. Or, you know, I'm trying to put the chips on my side of the table, but I'm also not trying to alienate you in any way. And I'm not trying to make it where it feels bad. because that's not my goal. I actually have a great affection for agents, not all, but most. And yeah, there's some that you just go, I can't love you. I've tried, I can't do it. So any rate, I would say in most cases, if you ask a question 3 times, you're going to get an answer.
Yeah.
I mean, really.
Jump in really fast on that too, because I think sometimes when you are in a conversation where you're clearly being dominated, it is hard to get a word in edgewise. And, you know, as much as our parents taught us not to interrupt, I think that like when you interrupt someone who's in the middle of a diatribe like that, you do shift the balance. It is a negotiating tactic. And a couple of just super neutral questions that you can ask almost at any time that will be something that we refer to as a brain interrupter, a pattern interrupter. And one of them is, may I ask why? Why? Even if it's not even applicable, it confuses them enough that you can start to shift, right? So may I ask why? And the second one is, okay, well, how do you suggest I do that?
Right.
Like when the seller or the buyer's agent is listing off all the things you got to meet, you got to do this, you got to do that, you got to do this, go after them to make the solution for you. So how would I make that happen? How am I supposed to do that? How is that supposed to happen? Right.
Right.
And you don't have to offer more information. You just ask that question. And, and so the
Yep.
good news is, just a second. The good news is when you interrupt their thought like that, you have a brief moment. It's kind of a flash where you have a brief moment for them to redirect. And when they get to this place of redirect, then you start going with your questions. But you have to be the guy that changes the momentum, I guess is the right word. Cindy, what's up?
So you have been teaching that for a long time, and I actually had the opportunity to use that about a week ago.
Excellent.
I was not prepared for how it went. I wasn't. Because my brain was like, oh, I could use this. I know this question. So why is that? Like,
Yep.
Because
And
when
that's
I
when
said,
you
may I ask why?
Yep.
And now let me preface, the agent team is the owner of the property we put the offer in on.
Okay.
May I ask why? Because we can. So how am I supposed to make this work? You come back up and you don't get any closing costs.
Mm-hmm.
I decided afterwards, because the tone of her cocky as hell voice, I was just going to do emails from then on with her. Because I didn't know any other good questions on how to deal with an extremely arrogant agent who owns the property we want the offer in on. Any ideas? Because we're still negotiating.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing I would say. Don't miss the fact that you're getting to talk to the buyer, or I mean, the owner, the seller. I always consider that a huge advantage, because now I'm negotiating with the principal, not with their mouthpiece. So it's a different problem when I've got an arrogant agent versus an arrogant agent who's the owner or the buyer. And so I don't back off from that at all. I'm like, yippee, because now I'm talking to the principal. And so then I'm going to ask more questions, and I'm going to go, I feel your confidence on the price, right? I feel you. I feel you're super confident about it. It's going to bring this value. I'm showing market time as what?
70 days.
70 days. So let me just ask you a question. In that 70-day period, how many offers have you had? Now they're going to try to defend their position. Don't back off of that when you've got the principal. Look, it's one thing if you've got an a-hole agent, sometimes better to diffuse and run, you know what I mean? Like you said, find a better method of communication that maybe is less confrontational. But if I've got the principal, I am never hanging up, because I'm going to negotiate the deal right now. I've got the principal. Yay. So the principal's an ass. Okay. Fine.
It doesn't change your job if the principal's an ass. Your job is still, right? You have to keep in your head the power of your buyer, right? The authority comes from your buyer to do whatever you have to do to walk through this and get as much information to prepare you to be able to close the deal.
Right. And look, you already know the principle is arrogance. So what's the sort of Achilles heel of arrogance?
Money.
In my
Power.
opinion. What?
Power and money. Power
Well,
and
yeah,
money.
but what are they wanting? They've already theoretically got power and money. So what are they wanting from me?
Acknowledgement.
Right. So I'm going to go there. I'm going to go, look, George, I know you've been doing this forever and your reputation is well known. Now, you may be thinking in your head, your reputation as an a-hole is well known, but you're like, your reputation's well known. And so if you wouldn't mind kind of schooling me here, when I'm pulling up my comps, here's what I'm finding. And I'm looking at these 70 days and I'm going, I know you know what you're doing, but I'm getting a disconnect with the market. Share with me what comps, how many offers have you had? What did they look like? What did they offer? What made that deal not go? And again, I'm back in control asking questions, but I'm always going to start with, if I've got arrogance, then they've got egos. So I'm not going to go head to head with their ego. I'm going to go, look, I know you've been doing this a long time and you know your stuff. I'm just wondering why I can't find this information. Can I ask you just some questions so you can help me? And be like, I'm the dumb girl who doesn't know, and like, don't fight ego with ego, but if I've got a principle, there's no way in hell I'm getting off that phone because I can find out everything. So now I just have to figure out how to dance around the ego. And I think you better start flattering them a little bit. And again, when I say this, I will not lie. I'm just telling you, I don't do it. I won't do it. So if I think they're a big a-hole, I am not going to say, you're so nice. No, they're not. They won't believe it anyways. They know they're a-holes. So instead, what I'm going to say is, I know you've been doing it a long time. That's kind of a neutral statement that sounds like maybe it's good.
I could use that one because my toxic trait is I go from being a nice person to being a biatch. And I don't like that toxic trait in me. So that's
Sure.
why I switched over to the email, because it was the tone of voice and the attitude that was triggering my toxic trait. And
I
I'm
understand.
working on it. That is always a work in progress. So,
Well,
but I like
mean,
the questions that you're, telling me to try to use is I need to work on using those questions more. I mean, it took a while for me to finally remember to use the questions that Kimberly had taught us. So
yeah, no, because it's hard, like I said, this isn't necessarily natural behavior. The truth is, I mean, I'm old and bitter. I've been doing this 41 years. And so this is stuff that I learned when I was younger. I was just a lot more emotional about it. Now I remember these people don't know me. It's not a personal thing. When someone's being arrogant or whatever, I mean, maybe think of it more this way. There's something that they feel deficient in. And
Right.
So the last thing I'm trying to do is strengthen the defensiveness that they've got, because I'm not sure why you would have to go around dominating people unless you felt kind of insecure yourself. So what I'd rather do is tell them, I know you've been doing this a long time, or maybe you don't know anything about them, then say, you may be far more experienced than me. Would you mind just taking a moment? I just have some questions that I'm not tracking with. So, can you share with me kind of how you arrived here and at the price? And can you tell me, I mean, obviously you've done a lot of work to the home, but, I'm showing the market's capping out here. How are you getting around that issue? Do you have concerns about the appraisal? Try to just go the directions all around this. And the more that I feel like, the more I can talk to somebody as the person I want them to be, I've got a better chance of ending up with the person I want them to be, because I'm not going to feed that. And I'm not trying to push their buttons either, even if they're pushing mine, but it's hard. Number one, kudos to you for self-awareness, because we all have weaknesses. There are things people say that I'm like, and that just, I mean, we're human. I'm just like, oh my God, I want to wring your neck. But my job is, this has nothing to do with me. This is all, I just, in my mind, my little client sitting there watching me do stuff. It's funny, I did a negotiation one day when a client was actually in my office because we were finishing up a counter offer. And I was like, hang on, let me call the other agent. And I called and I was chatting with them and discussing what the seller wanted. I hang up and the seller says to me, oh, you must know that agent really, really well. And I said, I've never talked to them in my life. And they said, really? You talk to them like they're your best friend. And I said, because they are right now.
Yeah.
That's a great mindset. I love that.
Well, and Cindy, I think, when we get triggered, right, by somebody else's behavior and it triggers something in us, there is something to be said about take a minute and figure out why we're so bothered by that. But beyond that, that is our opportunity to go, oh, wait, I actually do have authority here, right? I have authority from my buyer or from my seller to have this conversation. And so I'm operating from a place of strength, not a place of lack. And so when somebody who is, to Wendy's point, who's over assertive with their ego, they're actually operating not from a place of strength. It's bullying, which is a place of weakness. And so if you understand that psychology, then when somebody comes at you sideways about something, particularly in a negotiation, you just realize, wow, I have more strength and power than I thought I did, because they even acknowledge that I have strength and power by their bad behavior. And so I think sometimes we can trick ourselves into like stopping for a second and realizing that and doing this fast analyzation that says, oh, I don't need to feel squirrely and attacked. They're doing this because they actually feel threatened. They're uncomfortable about something. That's why the puffer fish, when you poke a puffer fish, it gets bigger, right? Like it's protecting itself. And so that's a mental image that I use. When somebody comes to me sideways, I just see them as a big puffer fish, right? Because I'm just like, oh, you're scared of something. Okay, well, I can help you be unafraid of things. And I'm just going to keep talking and working it through with questions. And so I think, Wendy's approach to having a relational piece without an accusation, right? We don't have to go, well, you. We can say, you know more than I do. There's no, I'm not a lesser human, and no one has changed my identity. If I'm talking to an arrogant jerk and I'm just like, oh, gosh, I totally didn't understand that. Can you help me understand that? Oh, wow. Thank you so much. Like, I'm totally playing them, but I'm playing into that ego, and that's what they want. So our buyers and sellers tell us what they want all the time. So do the agents, and we're all still humans, right? And so we all have these little quirks, but when you understand that you have the power and the strength to represent your client, you're not at a place of lack in a conversation with the opposite side. You have equal amounts of authority. And if you know how to use it, because you have language skills and you have some techniques, and then you have your questions where 1,500 questions that at any time you could shoot them out of your mouth, right? That's what you need to do. And if you need to write them down on a piece of paper and slap them up on the wall in front of you, so that if you do get flustered with somebody, you have that power. I mean, we all have cheat notes. I mean, I call it my yellow brain, and I have yellow sticky notes everywhere because I don't want to forget things, or I want to remember. And, there's questions that I ask every person, and I don't want to falter in that. I want to make sure I'm asking those questions. So for a long time, my questions were, in fact, I have a form somewhere. I have no idea where. It's in one of my Google Drives, but it's a form for like when I negotiate contracts. It's what I need. I want to make sure I don't miss anything, because at one point I sat down and said, all these things are important for me to have the strongest negotiating position for my buyer or for my seller. I need the answers to all these things. So if you don't have a framework like that, you are going to flounder. Not just you, Cindy, but I'm talking to all of us. You have to have a framework of how to handle these questions and which ones you should ask. You should ask them all, but you can't ask them like rapid fire. You have to ask them conversationally so that you are building that rapport and that agent wants to work with you. And pretty soon, if you do this right, and Wendy, you can attest to this, I'm sure, or you can shut me down, but a lot of times you can create the other side to be your advocate, who will go back to their client and say, gosh, we probably really want to work with Wendy. She understands what's going on. She's sympathetic to your story. This is what we need to do. And all the while, Wendy has worked her magic and gotten everything that her buyer or seller needs, but she's also woven in the relationship piece. And I know that, you know, there's a lot of us that have gone through a lot of different markets, and there's some that, you know, we went through a market space where everybody was learning something new. And I'll just bounce back fast to short sales. When we went through short sale and REO HUD stuff, there were a lot of lines drawn in the sand from a lot of agents. A lot of people were really pissed, and a lot of people were like, I have to hold firm. And so now, you know, I sat in a meeting not that long ago where a guy said, here's what I've learned over the last 10 years. And it's been really evident to me in the last 2 months. I should have been nicer to a lot of you people through the years, because they figured it out, right? They're like, oh, I didn't have to be an ass. I was busy, and that's how it worked for me, but I could have put together structures and systems and questions and processes to help move through that. So I'm just saying, part of our responsibility in negotiating is actually knowing what our framework should be for the questions that we need to be asking for both buyers and sellers.
Yeah. And look, if something, honestly, Cindy, if it gets really confrontational, and that's pretty rare that I've had it where I just cannot diffuse, sometimes what I'll do is just say, let me stop you right there. I'm so sorry. Somehow we have gotten way off track, and I must have said something that implied something other than what I intended. May we start again? Or, you know, I'll just call it out, or I'll say, you know, I feel like this is getting more emotional than perhaps either one of us want. Let me back up a moment. And so, because I think sometimes the other side doesn't know how they're coming across. And so they may not even be aware, and it's escalating and getting stupid and weird. There's about, I would say, in the history of my negotiations, and like I said, 41 years, I think there's about 3 agents that I was like, I can't win with them. And one of them, I literally did what you did, Cindy. I actually told this agent, I'm only going to communicate to you by email, because everything I said would get altered, and then they would call the title company and say, Wendy said this, and I never said any such thing. And so there was so much lying and alterations that I just went, we'll go to writing, we'll go on paper. And but other than that, for the most part, and I think I've dealt with lots of ranges of experience and skill sets, and it's just, I would tell you, I view it as a challenge, and the harder the person, the more I am excited, because I go, okay, this is going to test everything. Can I find a way to win with this person? And most of the time you really can. It's just keep, you know, as much as possible, we're humans, but if you need to take a break, just tell them, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Can I call you back? And I've been waiting for this client to call. I'll call you back in 5 minutes. Thank you so much for your patience. And then calm the hell down, you know, or whatever, get your peace, get your grip back, and then back into the battle. But I just, I'm always mindful that everything I'm doing is the client, and I picture them sitting right there listening to me. And would they be cheering me on, or would they be going, oh Christ, I hired the wrong person? You know?
Well, I definitely appreciate, you know, the input, and I am going to do the challenge accepted with the mindset.
There you go. There you go. You can win. I'm telling you, make up your mind. You can win. And by win, I mean win them over. And the good thing, like Kimberly was saying, you know, some of these people who are the hardest, once won over, become your best advocates. They will crumble once they're broken. My worst clients ever are some of my biggest advocates, where I was just like, mother of God. Where you just go, I don't know how to win with this person, but if you can figure it out, if you can crack the code, yeah, you'll have a client for life. Because I had one client say, everybody hates me. This is unbelievable. Like, you're the only person who ever likes me. And I'm like, I know, isn't it great? Isn't it great you found me? So, any rate, I don't know. I mean, these are sort of the things I do for negotiation. But like I said, if I had to say one thing, good negotiation is good interrogation. Get as much data as possible without appearing to be, use it for your client's benefit. And then, you know, be nice, be easy to do business with, be the kind of person. if you're an ass, to people, when you pick up the phone and they say, oh, I've done a deal with you before, you'll cringe inside wondering if that was the one you were mean to or rude to. Rather than like, oh, good, great, I'm happy to do it again. Because sometimes, it's a small ecosystem, really. We're all going to see each other again. We've all, it's not that big a universe. So, you might be mindful of the future deal. If this deal can't go, let's at least part friends. And sometimes I will literally say that to the agent in terms of a script. I'd rather part friends. If we can't get this, let's at least part friends.
Yeah, it's good.
It's hard for someone to
Like
go,
it.
I don't want to be friends.
Well, especially with you, of course. Here's another little tidbit on that. By the way, anytime that you do a deal with another agent, in my opinion, their name should be in your phone, and in the like business part of it or whatever should be the address of the last transaction you did with them. Because when that rolls back around later, you can go, oh my gosh, Wendy, we worked together on 123 Apple Street. I'm so excited to do business with you again.
That is so clever.
That
You
is
can just
clever.
update it if you do
And-
another job with them.
And then people go, how did you know it was me? I go, I recognize your voice. I don't forget a voice. And I
Right.
actually don't. So I'm not lying, but it does
Yeah.
help to remember their last name. Usually I'm good with a voice and a first name. I'm like, I know exactly what happened. But do you know how valuable that makes people feel that you remember them and you care about them? And
That
to your
is
point, Wendy,
genius.
of a small ecosystem, you should have every agent that you've worked with in your phone with the address, the last transaction you did with them. Because what happens is if they come ready, armed for bear, you've already just completely disarmed them. Like,
It's
oh,
true.
remember me? Oh my gosh, that's fun. Oh yeah, I forgot about those clients. Whatever. It allows you to just go down some wandering trail, right? And then you go,
It's
oh my gosh,
brilliant.
you called me, Cindy. What were you calling me for? Oh, I want to talk to you about your listing on, oh, okay, cool. Well, gosh, I hope we could work together. What's the status of your buyer? What's that, blah, blah, blah. That's where you can just launch. And you've already overcome some things. So I think just anytime that I have an agent conversation, I usually put down what brokerage they're in. And like if I did a transaction with them, or if I'm talking to them about coming to real, either way, for me, it's how I stay connected and make sure, oh gosh, when they call me or text me, I know who I'm talking to. Because it's horrible. It's when somebody sends you a message after you've had a great conversation and you have to go, who is this?
Who is this?
Yes, so much. And talk about losing any kind of competitive edge. You just kicked it right down the road. So, take the time to put those kind of names and numbers in your phone with a little tag of who they are. It'll help
That's
you.
I'm
brilliant.
updating my current contact right now, just so I don't
Atta
forget
girl.
to do it.
That's a brilliant tip because it makes the other person important. And honestly, again, in good negotiation, you want the other person to be important. They should be important to you. If you're negotiating with a listing agent, they're the gatekeeper for the deal, man. You need their help. And if a buyer's written on one of our listings, I need their cooperation. I need their willingness to get this thing across the finish line too. I mean, there was a point where cancellations were running pretty high. I don't know if you guys see these sort of trends. Suddenly you get this trend of everybody's canceling and home inspections. So I started asking agents during the negotiation, once I was getting the terms together, I would say, now I'd like your commitment that we're going to close this. If we do all this work to put this deal together, I just want to hear that you're as committed as I am to closing it, that we're going to get through inspection. We're going to get through this process and get this thing closed. There's too many cancellations today. And it made a big difference. There was this is a random story, but back in the short sale days, as Kimberly was reminding me, I'm like, there kind of hardly anything was closing, right? I mean, that was sort of the challenge of the time. And I got really frustrated with my staff because they got worn out on short sales and they were just like, God, can we cancel the deal? Their whole goal became canceling short sale transactions, not closing them. And I came in one day and told my staff, that does it. We close every deal. I know that's not possible. I know absolutes are not possible. But from this moment forward, the motto of our team is we close every deal. And from that moment, I heard my staff on the phone telling agents, you can't cancel because we have a policy in our office that we close every transaction. And agents would go, okay, let me go talk to my client and see if I could fix it. Deals started closing. We had a lender call and literally I heard Gene, my office manager, tell him, no, You have to make this loan somehow. We close every transaction. And he was like, well, let me see if I can figure something out. And so the point of that story is this, what is the problem? What is your mindset? So even if you were to tell every listing agent, I close every transaction. If this deal can be made, I'm going to make the deal. You and I commit that we're going to put this deal together. Like whatever you have to do to psych yourself up, them up, whatever. I will tell you, it was the most hilarious thought experiment I had ever seen. And I hadn't intended it as one. I was just pissed. And I was like, that does it. We close every short sale deal. These people came to us at the worst time in their life, and we are going to make the banks do it. And we're going to make these buyer agents hang on, and we're going to close the deals. And that year we closed over 400 and 404 deal. Not that that's relevant, but my point was the year I had about a 30% increase from that is actually the point. And it was just announcing that we closed every deal. How stupid is that? So,
Brilliant.
well, even when you go into negotiation, clear your own mind of your own reservations of why you can't get this deal done. Because I will tell you, you have doubts sometimes and things creep in, or you're tired, or you don't really like this agent. You don't really want to do the deal. Nope. Clear your mind before you get on that phone with the agent, before you present this offer. Think of every reason why you don't want it to have happen. Why you don't want to do the deal. I'm too tired, and this agent is there, and I don't really, the buyer's whiny, and then clear that all out and sit down and be a negotiator and go, I'm making this deal happen. And that is the mindset I enter every single transaction. I'm making this deal happen. And I sit down and I literally tell my clients, look, if this deal can be done, I will get it done. If there's money, I'll find it. Don't you worry. And that is actually how I feel and what I believe. And even if it's not true, because I believe it, it probably ends up being true, because it's not so much what you think is true, or what is actually true. It's what you think is true. It's the same thing I was saying to Kimberly the other day. I said, know your marketplace, like what's the market, but then also what do people think the market is? There was a time where the market was really strong and people still thought it was bad, and vice versa. So when I'm negotiating, I'm also negotiating to the reality, to like what people think is, not necessarily what the reality is. I've had agents, I had this one property with the screwiest damn floor plan, and I was sitting there thinking, oh Christ, I wish I didn't know the floor plan. It'd be easier to negotiate. And the agent who, when they wrote the offer on it, said to me, oh my God, these properties never come up for sale, and they're so rare, and it's such a great floor plan. And I thought, great. And I got 5,000 over asking because I heard what they said.
Yeah.
So I was like, there's money there.
I love what you're saying, Wendy. It's all mindset. It's mindset. It's mindset of ourselves. I can speak for myself. I don't want to speak for the general world, but the worst deals I've ever had has usually been my mood when I go into it.
Yes. Right. And see, that's smart, Andrew. It's the truth. It's just that we all have that, because we all have a bad day, or we're like, oh my God, I hate the property, the client, my life, whatever, fill in the blank. And that comes through. So that's why I said, really, the first step is just clear the slate. Decide you're the best. You're going to put this together for your client. You're going to do the absolute best you can for your client, and then do it. Mm-hmm. And it's fun. I love negotiating. And quite frankly, this has served me. If you haven't already realized it, life is negotiation. Mm-hmm. I mean, everything you do in your life is a negotiation. Where you go to dinner with your wife, that's negotiation, man. It's all negotiation. One of my best friends, when we travel, everything she wants, she makes me take care of it. Which makes me crazy, but she'll go like, I want, one time we went to New York, and she's like, I want to be looking over Park Central, but I want to pay the price for the interior. Go fix it. And I'm like, why am I doing? I'm an real estate agent, not a hotel negotiator. She goes, it's negotiation. That's what you're good at. Go do it. And every time she's made me go do it, I've gone and gotten it. So life is negotiation. Get good at it. So I don't know
all of your ways, right? Like you negotiate. I mean, just get a 2-year-old, get in the presence of a 2-year-old and figure out what your negotiation skills are. Like those guys will hone your skills like nobody's business, right? Or show you your massive deficiency, whichever.
Good point. Good point. Yeah. Yeah.
But it's true, you know, like anything, I'll give you a fast example of this. Our daughter really wanted, she was in junior high and she really wanted to buy these shoes, which in her whole family, we all thought they were ugly. We didn't like them at all, but she was adamant that she wanted them and she was going to spend her own money. So we're like, go get them. So she went and she bought them. She came out of the store. We went to dinner. She put her shoes on and she started looking at them and she didn't like them anymore. She realized what the rest of us had already seen, right? So she packed them back up and she's like, I don't think I can return them because I put them on. I go, you can return them. You just have to give one answer, one reason. Like you don't have to say, don't lie, but let's figure it out. So the bottom line was we came to, I'm not satisfied with my purchase. Right?
Perfect.
So we sent her right through the door and I stood outside the store in the mall. I could see through the glass and I hear her. And the only thing I said, don't say anything else. Just say, but I'm not satisfied with my purchase. And if you just keep saying that, you will 100% wear them down. And I'm not kidding you. There were like 4 people working the floor and she worked every one of them. She got all her money back and came out bouncing and she went and bought shoes she really wanted. But you can't be like, I'm just not satisfied with my purchase. There was nothing wrong with them. It was just a bad purchase to begin with. Everybody but her knew that. And then when she realized it, she was like, oh, I just spent all my hard-earned money on these stupid shoes. So now I don't want them. What do I do? And I was like, well, you either keep them or you go in there and face them and tell them you're not satisfied with your purchase. But the lesson in that is she didn't have to lie. She didn't have to manufacture the story, because if in negotiation, if you guys start manufacturing stuff, you get discredited pretty quickly because you get disproven pretty quickly. And that's just going to destroy your little reputation. That's going to destroy your name. That's not what you want for round 2 of negotiations or the next transaction with them. Oh, I can't really count on what she says. She's kind of a BSer, right? So always tell the truth, but find a way to tell the truth, right? That you can have conviction behind without revealing information. Jamie didn't need to say, I actually really hate these shoes. I should have never bought them, because they probably would have not given her money back, to be honest with you. Right?
Correct.
It's not, they weren't Amazon or Zappos, right? It's just some little funky store in the mall. And so their return policy was, we don't take returns. And she just kept on, but I'm not satisfied. Well, it says it on your receipt. We don't take returns. She goes, I know, but I'm not satisfied with my purchase. She just was relentless. And so, the reason I share that is sometimes you just have to know your own game.
Mm-hmm.
And you got to know your own conviction, but don't lie. Tell the truth.
Oh God, no. You'll cut your own throat. It's not even what you get discovered about. It's that, you lose your own self-integrity. And when you lose your integrity, you've lost everything. So no, I won't lie to put a deal together. And I don't know, just in general, try to treat others like I'd like to be treated. I'm going to try to do the best I can for my client, but I'm not going to do that by lying. I'm not going to sell my soul, Jesus. So yeah, no, always tell the truth, and to your client too. Sometimes you have to tell your client, look, the other side of the negotiation is not with the other agent. It's with your client, and how to handle your clients too. Because if you have to tell them their baby's ugly, that's hard. And so,
and sometimes when you tell them their baby's ugly because that's the truth they need to hear, and they fire you, that's okay too.
Yeah, it is. And a lot of times I will tell somebody, look, may I be honest with you? I think we've got some challenges with the house, and even though it's highly customized to your goal, what your tastes and stuff, some people are finding it out of date and it too dark. And so we're getting penalized for that. And I just wouldn't be, I owe you my fidelity and the truth, and so I think you've got a great house, great bones, but we've just deferred some maintenance that we're going to have to pay for. So we can either do the work or we can give them money. And my advice is just give them the money. And so, but again, that goes to motivation. So, how motivated is the client, right? So, that's a different issue there too.
Yeah. Wendy, you are a rock star. I don't know about you guys, but I really appreciated the dialogue today. It was super helpful. A lot of good things to write down. Would love to have you back, because I know you have like 3 or 4 more points that we didn't even get to because we got all excited about. some of the rest of this. So we'll invite you back in about a month or so. We'll do a monthly negotiation thing till we exhaust Wendy's brain.
Love it.
Well, I don't know, you might have gotten all that's in there, but I'm happy to, sometimes even role playing it can be fun. Like you guys have Kimberly. So if there's something where you're running, like how would she have handled it? I would ask her, because I guarantee you she's got answers. And so I've done that before in seminars that I've taught where I just role play it. Like, well, I don't know. They're like, well, what do you do when this happens? I'm like, okay, you be your buyer. I'll be the agent. And we just play it out. And it's very funny. There's very few deals that you can't negotiate out. You just got to practice asking the right questions. You ask the right, I'm just telling you, it's questions. Yeah. You haven't asked this one. It was the seminar up in Prescott or whatever in February. And I'm like, I told this agent, you haven't asked enough questions. She's like, I've asked everything. I said, okay, you be the buyer. And we did it. And by the end of it, she was like, oh my God, I never thought of that. She just hadn't asked enough. Seek to understand. Ask questions till you genuinely understand what they're saying, even if you don't agree with it. So questions, that's the best negotiation skill ever. That's all that's in my brain, Kimberly. You've heard everything in my brain.
Well, we are grateful for it. Thank you so much. I love it.
Thank you guys. It's always a joy.
Have fun. Have a great week.
Thanks, Wendy.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks so much.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.